have on today, Roxy, because I'm going to let you introduce her, but you know, I've fangirled over her forever. She's actually my age. And I remember when she first got on the scene, I was a young girl who just moved to Los Angeles, and I watched her entire story unfold. And I remember going to the Bel Air Presbyterian Church in Los Angeles, and they had an Easter service up where the Rose Bowl, not the Rose Bowl, you know, that big amphitheater. I don't know.
The Hollywood Bowl?
The Hollywood Bowl, yes.
Yep.
And I saw her from the corner of my eye, and I was like, oh, I wish I was her. I don't know why. I was just like, she looks like she's living just the best life.
Doesn't she?
And then you manifest everything, because look whose podcast she's doing today.
Today. No, you know, it's like one of those things. I remember growing up, you know, part of me, like, you know, I always was like, I'm going to do this when I grow up and this when I grow up. And I really wanted to be a singer.
You did.
But
you couldn't sing.
But I couldn't sing. I could not sing. So I was like, okay, we're going to check that one off the list. But I am thrilled that our guest has one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard.
Goodness.
Oh my God, right? Don't you just love hearing her sing? So without further ado, we have the amazing Katharine McPhee Foster on the show today.
Oh my gosh.
Katharine.
What an introduction.
Well, we need a good introduction.
That's so crazy that you saw me Easter Sunday. I was living my best life because I was praising Jesus.
I know. When people say that, like, you know, because of the show Pretty Little Liars, they're like, oh, we saw you this one time. And I'm like, you are a freak weird fan. Like, what a freaky thing to like say to me. And then I just did it to you. So it's like it comes full circle.
No, but it's funny because you'll remember like just random, but I remember that Easter Sunday.
And you remember me.
I don't remember. Don't exactly remember you, but maybe I would have if you come up to me.
She was the girl in backstage trying to stalk you, remember? Like knocking on the door.
I was
She's
the
like,
weirdo being like, let's go a little bit. Let's delve into your massive life that you have lived in a very short amount of time. And we were looking through your Instagram because that's what we do when we have guests on. And your bio says like, no life is perfect, right? You know, everything on the outside looks perfect, but it actually isn't. Is that how you really feel? Do you feel like it's, you know, sometimes it's hard to live the life of Katharine McPhee?
Well, I think I wrote that on my bio for Instagram because I think I just in general, I struggle, I wrestle with the love and hate of social media. You'll find me at times like where I'm really active and I'm posting things, but also being very aware of like the pitfalls. I'm turning British.
Like that accent.
Pitfalls of, you know, social media and like just refreshing the page and, you know, like the dinging of the phone and all that kind of stuff. It's just, it's been structured to make us obsessed. And, so I love it and hate it all at the same time. And I think that probably a lot of people feel the same way. I think there's some people who embrace it more than others, like more than I do. And I just go in and out of it. And I really do feel like Instagram is, and I do appreciate people who are really candid and or self-deprecating. I enjoy being self-deprecating to like, you know, sort of expose the irony of social media. But yeah, I think that's probably why I put that, because I oftentimes just people that I follow, I think that it's just like this perfect portrayal of their life. It's just so not like that. I mean, everyone knows that, right? But yet you still get wrapped up in like falling into a rabbit hole of watching someone's Instagram page and just going like, oh my God, they look perfect all the time. And, you know, it just like plays games with your mind.
So, you know, what's interesting, Tammin and I talk about this a lot on the show about scrolling through Instagram and, you know, comparing yourself to other people and looking at, you know, this girl's feed and seeing what's going on. And Tammin actually had a really good point, though. She said that she doesn't follow a lot of the people that make her feel bad about herself.
Yeah, the aspirational accounts.
Right. The aspirational accounts. It's more like the real people and the real deal. And I agree with that, too. I feel like I do the same. Is that like what you use too, as far as like, first of all, do you even compare yourself on Instagram to other people, and if you do you kind of just select the people you want to follow based on that?
Sure. Of course I do. I mean, I think it's like, it'd be silly to say that I don't, but I would say that, yeah, I don't, I've actively following people that bring joy and spark joy and not, there's a girl who lives in my building. We live in a condo building and she's on like the top penthouse floor and she's really active on social media. And I've had.
Who is she?
Spell her name.
Is her name Mommy Song?
Her name is I don't bring her up because I'm saying anything negative. Like she is someone who's super active on social. This is like obviously her everyday life. And it's, but I give her credit that she's sharing some stuff with like IVF struggles and I just still find it a little bit, it's like, it's both sides kind of like, I struggle with both sides where it's like a portrayal of the perfect life and then also sharing too much. Right. So, I respect both because I think it's like the world that we live in, and to act like it doesn't exist is just sort of naive, but I struggle with both sides where I'm like, oh, I want to share, you know, I mean, I'm about to have a baby and took me a long time to do like a Instagram post about being pregnant in the first place, because I always feel like I'm being a cliche, right? Like pregnant. And then like, now I've got to do the baby bump photo. There's like social things that you have to follow. And look, a bunch of my friends were like, oh, are you going to post, you know, cause they knew I was pregnant. And I was like, no, I'm not going to post that I'm pregnant. Like, and then of course we're out in Santa Barbara and they take photos of my stomach sticking out. And then they say sources confirm that, you know, she's pregnant. By the way, I'm like wearing the weirdest like workout t-shirt. I love it. You know, and I, so in some ways I almost prefer that because I don't ever want to assume, this is my Instagram page. I guess if I could like sum it up, I never want to assume that my life is so important that people are waiting for me to announce that I'm pregnant or waiting to post the first photo of my baby's foot or hand or whatever like that. And so I just want it to be like a page that people enjoy, and they know what it is. And it's like not a super active page. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I just want things to like spark joy and be positive. And I don't want to have like any crazy angles for people, but everyone's page is different, right? So some people have like a real social page where they're trying to give information about a cause or whatever. And it's like, I like to do all my little causes. I guess there's so much information. You can know so much about people now that I enjoy this, right? Like I enjoy getting on a podcast and sharing things about myself and being able to explain things in context, opposed to like a glimpse of something in a photo. So this is what I really enjoy. I love talking, and I've lost my voice many times in my life.
Well, you're in the right place then.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I agree with you. Like, I think it's maybe because as actors and as a performer, which you are, it's like you were told, the narrative used to be like, be secretive in your life and be public in your work, in a way, if that makes sense. Like, show up in your work, delve into these characters, and then be mysterious, right? And now we have all these social media platforms where it's like, no, take that lid off being mysterious and really delve into vulnerability. And I struggle with it, although I do share a lot about myself. And the reason I share a lot about myself is I shared something a couple of years ago about, I don't know if it was anxiety or eating disorders or something.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that came out of the woodwork that said, thank you for sharing something that was painful. There's purpose in that pain. And because of that, you have helped me. And I'm like, oh gosh, now I feel like there's a duty from me, not for everyone. Everyone feels differently, and the way that they help other people could be different. I feel like there's a duty for me to talk about my secrets, because they don't keep us safe, in a way to connect with other people to help their healing
Right.
If that makes sense. So, but I do struggle with it. Like, I don't tell, people would be probably shocked to hear this, but I don't tell everything. I definitely have a few secrets still that I'm not going to bring to light because maybe they're just too dark or too painful for me. So I do feel like there's still that veil. But I always say to my husband, like, what happens if, you know, one of our shows that we're working on creating right now, what happens if one of them gets really big, right? And then I've shared too much, but
right.
Yeah.
And the thing that, like, this is, I think we have this, what you're saying relates true to me. There's no rules anymore, right? Like there's A-list actresses that are on Instagram and I mean, Reese Witherspoon is super active on Instagram and she's been in huge blockbuster movies and been nominated for Oscars. There's no rules anymore. But to go back to where I was a college student, it's funny for me to be saying this because people would probably be like, well, she went on American Idol. Like there's nothing, like that's a reality show in some ways.
In some way.
But my thinking from when I was 18 years old, I went to a conservatory for theater and we had this amazing, his name was Stephen McConnell, and he was like a very serious theater teacher. And I remember him saying, he had a British accent, you know, like British professors make you seem even better than they are. And he was talking about how Kate Winslet, like doing the cover of a magazine was so ridiculous because, you know, we're supposed to see her not as Kate Winslet. We're supposed to see her as Rose or whatever the like famous roles that she played. So that always made sense to me. And in my mind, I always wanted to be an actor, right? Even through going on American Idol. So that always, like that sort of traditional way of being an actress, that is no longer traditional is still in my mind. But it's interesting. You talked about like the eating disorder stuff too, because when I was coming off Idol, I was like really open about, I was very young and I was really open about how I'd really struggled with eating disorder and how American Idol was actually this focus that I needed to kind of get a hold of all of my like issues. I mean, when I say get a hold of all of my issues, it's something that takes time. But I really devoted a lot of time to kind of working on it. And then I chose to like, you know, do an exclusive with People magazine. And I was so young. And I remember feeling like, oh no, I really exposed myself, right? It felt like too vulnerable. And then I didn't feel comfortable when anyone would ask me about it, right? Like I didn't want to suddenly only be known for that. And so that's sort of the balance, right? Like of trying to, but it is true nowadays with social media and like podcasts is that I can have a conversation that doesn't become like a square in a tabloid or a headline in People magazine. It can actually really be a conversation about like the journey, and it puts things in context for people of, you know, whether it's food or body weight issues, it's like, it does help people. And that's what's important.
You know, going back, I think a lot of us have struggled with eating issues, disordered eating disorders. You know, it kind of runs the gamut a bit. But for you, when you were kind of, you know, in the middle of it, you know, oftentimes we have eating disorders because we're trying to control a part of our life and where we feel the rest of our life is sort of out of control. Was that the same for you? Was it kind of like in that way?
I don't know. I mean, when it was like really in the height of it being bad for me, I don't know if I could identify it as being a control thing. I mean, I guess it was. I think, you know, societally, like we get told so many. When I was a little girl, my mom would take me to the supermarket. I'm born and raised in LA, and they would be like, they would say things like, "Oh my God, your little girl's so beautiful," right? Like she's so pretty, she's so pretty, she's so pretty. Like, so you get told that, like when you're a little girl. I didn't find myself even like, "Oh my God, your little boy is so beautiful. Oh my God, your little girl is so beautiful." And then that becomes the important thing, right? Like that becomes, and then you go through puberty and your nose gets bigger than your face and your ears are like, whatever the changes happen. And your body, like for me, in my case, like my body changed overnight. And when a lot of girls' bodies don't change till they're 15 or 16, mine changed when I was 13. And so I guess, I couldn't at that time identify that it was a control thing, but I was trying to hold on to like this identity that I had already been given by other people of like, oh, she's so pretty and skinny and like, you know, like whatever that actually means, it's all in the eye of the beholder anyway.
Right.
And then suddenly when like, I wasn't like this little tiny skinny thing anymore, I was trying to hold on to that thing that held value for me.
I think there's so many women, I don't know the statistics, but I truly believe that most women have distorted eating, and it's because of the narrative surrounding beauty was blasted at us from the minute we were old enough to understand it. And I had a therapy session today, and they said, like, where did your body issues? Because I don't have an eating disorder anymore, but I still don't have good self-esteem when it comes to my body.
Right.
And she said, like, when did it start? And I'm like, I don't even know. I don't even know. There wasn't like a turning point where I said, oh, I remember there was this one time at camp and this guy made fun of me, which that did happen. But I just always remembered that everyone was always talking about food, and everyone was always talking about beauty, and everyone was always talking about size from the minute from 7, from when my first daughter's 7. And it's kind of just the experience we've always had as women. And I hope that now we're becoming more aware, and I hope that the narrative is changing, that I have 2 little girls right now that I'm raising. I hope that we focus more on the other things about women than just their looks, because I worry that if we don't, that women are never going to feel better about themselves or have better self-esteem.
But Tammin, I have to say it's hard because, and like you, Katharine, I catch myself. I also have a 6-year-old daughter, and to other people's kids, I'm like, oh my God, your little girl's so beautiful. Your little boy's so beautiful. And even to my own daughter, like I'll catch myself. You're like, oh, you look so beautiful. But then it's like, then that is where the focus goes, you know?
He said, oh, should I not say that you're beautiful anymore? Like, what do you guys think? He says, do I walk into a room and like, do I say to someone, like, even like saying to you, like, Kat, if my husband saw you, he'd be like, and he knew you, he'd say, oh, Katharine, you look so lovely today. You look so beautiful, whatever. That's what he was taught in his generation, right? So he even said to me, he's like, so what do I say? Is it offensive to say it? Is it offensive not to say it? No. What do you say?
I personally am not like enough of like a feminist to be like, how dare you say that I'm pretty? I think that's like, gets a little bit too extreme. I of course it still feels good when my husband's like, oh, baby, you look so beautiful. It's just that I think the conversations I'm going to be a mother and all that stuff. I think
any day now,
even maybe during this podcast.
It's true. It's honestly, it could happen any minute. I think just like the conversations that parents have with raising their children now have to be different. And I think that they probably are different. Like my mom, the conversations that she had with me, I don't think were like, they weren't substantive enough, like in that, yeah, you are beautiful, but guess what else you are? Like you're this, and you're so much more than that. And maybe some parents are better at that than, or more aware of that, I think now, just because if we think about like, if we were exposed to that kind of stuff in our generation, we're the same age, right? I almost wonder though, with social media, I'm like sort of making a turn, that there's so much exposure to beauty now, right? And fitness, and that almost like, maybe it's almost better. Like maybe people are not so blown away by someone having perfect hair or having like the coolest outfit. Like maybe it almost makes
like desensitizes them in a way
a little bit, right? And then like, oh, you can go get like lip fillers and get this done and that done, and like, and you can look just, if you want, that's what you care about, if that's what you want. I'm not promoting that, but I'm just saying, like, I'm wondering if it's like,
but does that make you think about, does that make you, Katharine, think like differently about how you're going to raise your child? Like, does it already make you think about the conversations about, beauty, about looks, about, all of those those does that already sort of change it for you?
Yeah, so I have thought about it a lot, but I'm sorry, I'm struggling with the sun going down. So.
No worries.
For those who are watching, I've like a big shiny thing on my face. I have thought about that, but since I am having a boy, I don't know if people know that. Since I'm having a boy, it's definitely a different you think about different things.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of a little bit really, I always wanted a girl. Like that was always what I wanted. And now that I'm having a boy, I'm always wanted both. Let's just be honest about that. But now that I'm having a boy, I'm kind of like, oh, wow, there's really different things I need to worry about, right? Like to think about, to teach him versus the things I would be thinking about with a girl. But it's kind of refreshing because I don't feel like I need to think about those things. I don't think men are as affected by the sort of societal, like this is the way you look. And this is, I think men have different issues and different things to worry about. And, you know, so all those things will be very different from female issues.
Although I realize men play such a big part in, and it shouldn't, but in the way we feel about ourselves, you know, even my therapist, I keep saying my therapist, like I'm like seeing my therapist every week. I mean, every day. No, I didn't. I see her once a week, guys. Yes.
Is this the CVS therapist?
We call her a CVS therapist. She's not
I
a CVS
love a good therapist.
But she's on an app and I found her, whatever. But she said to me that, does your husband, because I said, you know, I still have bad body image. And, and she said, does your husband ever like say anything to you? And I said, no, like firstly, I would never marry a man who would, just because I have my own issues and I wouldn't be able to cope. And I said, no, he's never mentioned my body ever. He thinks I'm beautiful. He thinks that everything about me, even having 2 10-pound babies and stretch marks and your skin moves. And he's never, I mean, I honestly think he'd probably like me more voluptuous than less. And she said, well, that's great. And I think it's because he was raised by a very strong mother who that stuff did not fly, you know, like the putting down of women in any way. And it happens subtly. We as women hear messages subtly about how our bodies aren't good enough all the time. And if we're not aware of it, it can seep into our being. And then we wonder why we have all these issues, you know? So raising a son, I don't have a son. I want one, but I think my husband would leave me if I have another baby. I'll be like, oops, I didn't know I was ovulating.
Give him a couple margaritas.
And then I'll have and then I'll have 3 girls. You know I will.
But your kids are so cute. Oh
thank you. They're not bags. But
look, I was just like, they're beautiful.
Yeah, see?
I know it always happens.
We do raise sons differently. And I think that maybe it's maybe you don't have to do this, but maybe on social media, maybe every now and then you can talk about how raising a son is different than a daughter, and people would be interested in what you had to say.
Yeah. It's like this sort of stepping into motherhood is definitely, I see why so many women, when they have children on their social media, their platform totally changes. Like they suddenly start talking about their favorite mommy products, and because it becomes actually my pediatrician, who I've picked as our pediatrician, he wrote a book, and it's like, I was just reading the chapter last night about how becoming a mom and having a kid, it changes your whole world. Like you suddenly have new friends that you connect with by meeting just other kids' parents and things like that. So I see why the conversations on their own social pages change, because there's a whole new world. There's a whole new territory to learn about. And
talking about love, because you're having a baby with a man that you love. Tell us about how you met David, because he's obviously an idol. You're an idol. See what I did there? So many people, two idols together. How did you guys meet, and how did you I love people's love stories. Like, how did you know that each other was the one?
We didn't try and make that idol reference, but I mean, if you're really diving deep, you could probably figure it out. But I met him when I was a contestant on American Idol.
Oh, you did?
I did. I was that. That season. I mean, if you remember how massive American Idol was at that point, it was just like, it was, I mean, they gave us our own security guards to go to the malls to shop. It was like every week we would go, and it was so unnecessary, but that's how important they thought that the show was. And like, you know, if Steven Spielberg is watching American Idol every week, it was pretty important at that time. It was pretty major. So I say that because they had amazing guests every week. Like we had Stevie Wonder and Rod Stewart and Andrea Bocelli and David Foster. And I remember calling my mom and saying, you're never going to believe who's the guest mentors this week. And, you know, my mom was a huge Andrea Bocelli fan. And so I grew up like listening to all his music. And then I said, the producer, David Foster. And I was like, I don't know who he is. And she's like, Katharine,
David Foster,
David freaking Foster.
Like, David Foster, you know who David Foster is. And I was like, okay. So I grew up idolizing Celine. And that was one of the many people that he like, she was already, he'll credit her because he's always good at giving credit where credit's due, but he'll say that Celine was already famous in Canada, but he brought her down to America and made her first album with her. And so I was obsessed with Celine, obsessed with not Mariah Carey, well, her too, but he didn't produce her. And the Whitney Houston Bodyguard soundtrack. I mean, he did like everything that I loved. So anyway, that was when I first met him. But of course, it wasn't like, I mean, I was very young and we have a huge age difference. And so I was certainly not, all I was thinking about was the competition and Andrea Bocelli and getting through that week. But it was really cool because when I came off the show, I came in second, I didn't win, but I got signed to RCA, and they had me, the big song that I sang on Idol was Somewhere Over the Rainbow that Simon picked for me. He had like said, this is a song that Kat's going to sing, you know. And so RCA had hired David. So I remember like getting in my because I grew up here in LA. So I had my car here, and my mom came to the studio, and he lived in Malibu at the time, this beautiful property. It was mostly like the house itself, he'll say, like wasn't even that great, but he had this amazing studio with this huge lawn. So it's just like straight out of a movie, where I pull up in my little like Honda Civic car, so cheeky, my first little car that I ever had, into this like big beautiful mansion, and had a great session that day and recorded the vocals with him. And I just remember being really I realized obviously at that point how iconic of a producer he was, right? And all the amazing accomplishments he had, and being there with my mom, and doesn't just talking about music and stuff. So it was a really special day. And then he started taking me on the road, like to do a bunch of, everyone would tell you that he never says no to a charity event, right? He's like always doing the musical entertainment for a charity event. So, but then he always needs singers to sing. So I started becoming one of many singers that he would take on the road with him. So none of that had any romantic notions whatsoever. Although he did he did make it known that I was marrying the wrong person. I did get married. I got married. I was almost 24. So I was 23. And so I'd already known him for a couple of years now. I'd done a bunch of gigs with him. And he came to the wedding and played the piano when I sang for my then husband. That situation didn't work out, but it was, I learned a lot, but he was just kind of always this person that I really felt honored to know, and to just, I knew I never had any intentions of him producing an album for me or whatever. Music is like a whole other subject I could go into. I kind of always just in the back of my mind realized I would probably be more of an actor than I would be like a recording artist. And so we stayed friends and did a lot of gigs together and got to know each other in a lot of different circumstances. But it wasn't until after I moved back from LA, I went to New York. From New York, I did Smash for 2 years, did a TV series on CBS Scorpion for 4 years. And then it wasn't until like the last 2 years of Scorpion that we ran into each other in Palm Springs. And I was much more mature. I was 32 years old. And we had a lot of red wine.
That's how it always starts. That's how my babies were made.
He invited me and my sister, who I took her to Palm Springs for a girl weekend, to a tennis match, because I saw that he was in Palm Springs on his daughter's Instagram, I add you. And he said, come to the tennis match. And I was like, okay. And we went, and my sister went back to our hotel, and he's like, come stay and party with a bunch of friends. There was like tons of people, and we just kept drinking wine, and it was just a very different night than all the previous years.
I love it. Sounds like, you guys, that's actually really cool to know somebody that long and through different stages of your life like that. And then like, when like when it's the time, it's really interesting what they say about timing, right? It's like, sometimes it is the right person, but the time has to be right too.
Yeah. The time has to be right. Well, and I've always was crazy about him, and not in the same way, obviously, that I am that I could realize that I could be. And so now, of course, I'm always like, I wish I'd been with you like this whole time, whatever. But I would have never worked out because I would have probably been insane and crazy and like, you know, had to go through the young 20 something years that I needed to. But it's true. It's like amazing that we've known each other as long as we've have. And I'm out of breath because I'm pregnant. I had to take a pause.
I know the feeling.
I thought you were having a contraction. I was like, is it happening right now? This is going to go viral if you have the baby on the podcast.
No, I mean, I'm literally like trying to, if I seem like I'm in distress, it's only because
you don't look pregnant from here. This is the thing. Because normally
I'm pregnant.
Oh my gosh. It's so beautiful. When I was pregnant, my entire face blew up. Like I looked pregnant from here down for sure. You do not pregnant. You just not pregnant. You don't look at all. You don't look puffy or anything. You just look
my feet and my ankles and my calves, they're like all just like one giant unit. Like there's no separation from. Anyway, thank you. But let me just say that when you know, but it did take me because I knew him for so long and I loved him and I liked him but I was really freaked out about like the age difference. I was just like, I mean, it was just not even like that I was freaked out. It was just like, oh, this is just a fun thing. Like we've always loved each other, but he always kind of, not inappropriately, not like when he was in other relationships, but when he wasn't, he always kind of made it known that he had feelings for me or whatever. But I was always like, you're insane. Like, you're too old for me. And it's just like, you know, now when we're together, it just is right. And it's some people are never going to get it and we don't care. We're fine about it. You know, it's just like, he's the best thing that ever happened to me, but he was always the best thing that ever happened to me. Like even when he was just a mentor or someone who gave me privileges of performing and giving me experience or giving me a job, right? Like he was always special to me. So just the fact that we're sharing this life together, it's like we'll still be driving the car and I'll like turn to him and because I'm like super romantic. I like and I'll just be like, I can't believe we're together. I can't believe I'm with David Foster. And he just laughs and you know, like I can't believe we're having a baby, you know, it's just like because I still can't believe it. It's so cool. I think it's the coolest thing. It's like the greatest honor of my life.
I wish I could say that about my husband. I'm just kidding. Roxy and I are like writing down notes going, tell my husband he is the best thing while we're maybe you just need to like live, maybe you just need to have a baby first and then be like, I hate you. Just kidding. No, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Just you wait.
I've always dated older. Obviously, not obviously, but I haven't dated as older as David and you are.
Well, most people haven't.
Yeah, but I've always dated older. I've always been, you know, when I was 21, I had a acting coach and he was 52 and I just found him so sexy. There was something about the knowledge that he had that I didn't at the time when I was 21, that I just found really attractive. And for me, I've always gravitated towards men that know so much about the world. And I've lived through so many different experiences because like and everyone's each to their own. Like, I don't want to raise someone. And I feel like sometimes when you're with someone and you're, you know, in your 20s and they're in their 20s, you're also raising them while you're trying to like learn about yourself and your own life. And I don't know, for me, I've always definitely gravitated towards older. That's just always been my thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's so funny too. Like, you know, I going back to social media, I actually feel really grateful that my platform, for the most part, I have really sweet, positive people on my, I would say for the most part, like to give our society some credit. There's always the crazy people. Like I'll always click on like someone who writes something like, oh, your daddy issues, whatever. I'm like, let me just see if this person follows me. Usually they don't.
Never follow you. They never follow. They follow you, but they don't follow.
Yeah, they're just actively looking to
troll. Right.
To troll and say something negative. And here's the thing that's interesting about like saying daddy issues, or whatever, because my father passed like 3 years ago and I love my dad and I had a great relationship with him. But I will say that I did have daddy issues at one point in my life, but when I was much younger. But the funny thing is that people will associate you working out daddy issues with someone who's older than you. And in fact, like, actually my most tumultuous relationship that was the most volatile to me to my like nervous system was someone who was 2 years older than me, who treated me like, and my dad, this doesn't connect to my dad because my dad treated me horribly. I'm not trying to say that. But when you're trying to fix something, right? And I love psychology. I love like childhood. Same. I love going back to your, I love going back to like your past and connecting it to your youth and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, like one of my relationships that I found myself working through childhood issues was in a relationship when I was with someone who was the same age as me. So I think no matter who the man is and the age difference, like you're active. This is what I believe. When you're in a relationship with another person, you're working through stuff that's unresolved issues from your past. I believe that. And some relationships like bring it out more than others, you know? And so it's just always funny to me when I'm like, oh, okay, you're so original. Like bring on the comments. Is like, it doesn't bother me at all. Like the trolling thing. I just like, sometimes I just get pleasure out of being, I mean, I'm not the type of person. I never say things like fuck off, like in real life. I don't like saying those things to anyone, but sometimes it just feels good to say that, even though
yes.
doesn't really, like your comment doesn't really bother me, but you're just like such an idiot. So I just feel like saying it to you.
You know what I do sometimes? Tell me if you guys do this. I will type the response in that like I want to say to them, but then I won't like send it, and I'll just like, but it feels like I got it out a little.
Is that what you do to me?
Yeah. Sometimes when you're texting me, fuck you, bitch. Okay.
Don't you feel like it comes from? Do you feel like it comes from more of a place of like trying to teach somebody something? Like then I always am like, I'll write something and I'm like, and then I just delete it because I'm like, I'm never going to teach this idiot something.
Right. They're not going to learn from it. You know, the best thing to do is what I've realized is that, and I always say this on the show, is unhappiness is the fastest pipeline to hate. People who are unhappy go straight into hating other people because they're miserable with themselves. And so what I try to do on social media is not say fuck off, although I want to, as I'm kind of like, I said to this one woman who said, I unfollowed you. My husband had COVID and I was really struggling with it. And I wrote an emotional post and she was like, you know, who the fuck even are you? People have more pain than you, you know, whatever. And I just wrote back, you know, obviously you're going through something because I hear such anger in your voice, and anger isn't a primary emotion. It comes from pain. So I'm sorry that you're struggling. And I hope you can find some peace. Right. And that I think is a way for people to go, because what do you say to that? Because it's the truth. It's the truth. When you're angry, it's not that you're really angry. Again, is not a primary emotion. It comes from pain.
Oh, for sure. It definitely does. Like, and you can, it's amazing because sometimes you can, I would say most of my, if I choose to engage, are like more of a trying to ration with somebody or whatever. And when you don't attack back, usually their comment response will be, like,
I love you so much.
Or like, I'm sorry that I upset you. I actually da 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 da. It's like you get the sort of like peaceful reaction that you want to get. So, or
like, I can't believe I get a few like, I can't believe you even responded. I love you so much on that show. And you're like, what? That is not an in. That's to be an asshole is not an in.
No, they just want a response. They just want a response, right?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's so many social media games. Okay, so are you ready to have this baby, Katharine? Like, are you set? Ready. Like, have you done the classes? What are you doing?
Not right now. I mean, not much. Like obviously we're still in the middle of COVID and the cases are much better in California. So it's been really a nice treat. This might sound just like, you know, silly, but having just restaurants open back up again here in California. I was really upset about it for restaurants just in general, just for business holders and things like that, especially the cases went up in California when they closed restaurants down. It didn't help at all. So I was very upset for business owners in that regard. But selfishly, I've just been like, you know, because you sort of feel like for women who've had pregnancies during COVID, you're like in this little vacuum. You don't get to see, you know, like the cliche things that us girls want to experience, like see your friends and say like, oh, your belly, you look so cute. I mean, as superficial as it is, it feels good to be celebrated and have people be excited. So it's been nice, like the last 2 weeks, just to like go have lunch and see even people who work in these restaurants that you love, like you just want to say hi. And so really not a whole lot, but mostly my week is consisting of like a doctor's visit on a Monday and a doctor's visit on a Thursday, and going for long walks. And now at this point, I mean, I'm literally, my due date is today, and nothing's happened so far.
It will. You'll be, just after this podcast, we'll make it spicy for you.
Send the juju. Yeah, there is that salad, right? You're supposed to eat, right?
I've had it. I've had it already. Twice. I've had it. It's the restaurant in the valley called KOT, and they have pizza there as well. But there's this.
What a good ploy!
It's so cute. And this is what I'm talking about. It was like so fun. I got to go on Valentine's Day with meet my sister and her babies and her husband and my husband, and just like be out. And there was like 2 other pregnant women. It was so cute to be like, oh, how far along are you? And you know, one of them's miserable and the other one's just like, you know, trying to get. So it was just it's nice. So I'm gonna do the same thing, and spicy food and whatever. And
sex helps. Sex is supposed to help.
Yeah, that's true. Sex.
And I actually was really
tried
into
that.
sex.
Hasn't worked yet.
Actually, I don't think you were into. Roxy said that she did not want sex when she was pregnant. I wanted it all the time. That became like the worst. Like, imagine just a pregnant person who's bitching all the time and complaining and be like, lay on top of me and give it to me. My husband was like, you're scaring me. I don't want to be anywhere near you. You know, I was like, I need to have sex.
It's also the logistics and the positioning. Like,
who cares? Just turn around from one side and put your leg up somewhere. Come on, Roxy.
I was so big, I couldn't bend over. I couldn't put my legs up. I was like,
doesn't matter. You can figure it out. Come on, you've done it in a car before, Roxy.
True. Pretty good at that.
But definitely surprised me that it was not something at the top of my list. Because you typically in my everyday life is TMI, but I'm not someone who has like a low sex drive. It definitely surprised me during pregnancy. I'm just like, take it or leave it. I'm good.
Yeah,
right.
It is. It's all about those hormones, and I do think that being pregnant in lockdown, I've struggled with anxiety my whole life, and I actually did not struggle with any anxiety being pregnant. Because all the hormones, all that because there's so much progesterone. For me, I realized that when my estrogen levels heighten around ovulation, I'm a complete mess. And then when then your progesterone levels kind of get higher after you've ovulated. And I'm always good for 2 weeks, and I'm always really shitty for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And
what
when
period are we in right now?
Oh, I just ovulated, Roxy. Okay. I'm not shitty anymore. As of yesterday, I was really shitty yesterday. But progesterone is really great when you're pregnant. So like that beautiful, easy feeling. I kind of want to be pregnant again just to have like a year off of COVID anxiety.
Well, so interesting because women, some women are like, I loved being pregnant. Some people hate being pregnant. Some women hate. And I've just been like kind of in the middle. There have been plenty of nights where I was completely miserable. I felt like I couldn't breathe. And surprisingly, in my last few weeks leading up to me giving birth, which is any day, I've been the happiest and I've been the most comfortable, and I'm the biggest that I'm going to be, right? I'm towards the end. And I don't know. It's like, and this is the thing is every woman's experience is so different. The first trimester was so hard for me. I was like, I felt like I was going to throw up every second. I was so tired all the time. The exhaustion was like more annoying than being nauseous.
Right.
So, it's just great to hear other women talk about things because you'll be like, oh my God, I was the same way, or or you won't be. You'll be totally different.
You know, it's so funny too. I think for me, it was the buildup in my mind because I had told myself for so long, oh my God, pregnancy is going to be awful. Like delivery is going to be horrible. Like I freaked myself out about it. So like when I actually did get pregnant, it was actually pretty great. Like I was like, it's not that bad, Yeah. And it just, like I had energy, especially in that second trimester, like energy, my skin cleared up, the nausea went away.
The hair was great. The sex life could have been great, Roxy. If you just got your leg a little higher, for God's sake.
Jeez.
My hair has been my favorite part of the whole thing.
Right.
It's just so thick, but legitimately I go and take a shower and not one strand of hair falls out.
And then it will though.
I know.
Just have to let you know.
It's going to be so sad because it's going to come out in clumps and it's just going to, it'll still be long, but it just won't be nearly as thick, and that's okay. But no, I've definitely had many days and nights where I'm like, this pregnancy thing is not, my mom was so positive about everything growing up. She's like, oh, I love being pregnant. She was always the high end of things. And so I think my experience has been a positive one in that it's in the middle. Like it wasn't too high and it wasn't too low. So
I always tell new pregnant mamas, and this is unsolicited advice, but just give yourself grace when those hormones get a little, they get a little topsy-turvy. And because I knew from my first pregnancy, I was expecting it for the second one. I think it's day 3 where you kind of just like cry. Isn't it? Isn't that the day, the baby blue day? It's like day 3 or day 4, where so all your progesterone and your estrogen is like the highest it's ever going to be, and then it drops.
Are you talking about when you give birth?
When you give birth, and it's about the 3rd day where you just are like, what's wrong with me? And I knew that for the second time. So when I was on the 3rd day, like, what's wrong with me, crying all day, I was like, oh, this is normal, you know? And I think the more women that talk about that, I think people will be less scared about like, why am I crying? You know, why am I upset? And then it kind of evens out over the next
think
year.
It's so important for women to talk about the postpartum thing too. I mean, I've had a lot of women who I'm friends with. They've given no baby advice. It's all been like how to take care of yourself, which has been really nice. Like even just physically with the pain and like the special solutions and the pads and the little diapers to wear, healing after, especially if you're having a vaginal birth or whatever. So that stuff has been really helpful. And I have been preparing myself to just kind of maybe be a little sad and maybe be a little down and be okay with it and maybe be really down. My sister really struggled with postpartum. And so I think always managing expectations in anything is the most important.
Yes.
Managing expectations in a marriage, relationships, your birthday party, New Year's Eve, like always managing New Year's Eve. Think about like how many disappointing New Year's Eves you've had, right?
Every.
Right. You're always like, this is going to be the best New Year's
Except last New Year's Eve, because I was like, oh, this is going to be crap. And it was really good, except my husband got COVID the next day. So I was like, that was a terrible New Year. But when you have no expectations, life is so much better.
So much better. Yeah.
That's the way we should be living, right? I mean, you just take it day by day and what comes, and we don't.
Right. I mean,
right.
I can't tell you how many people told me like that last few weeks, even my doctor, like she's saying, you know, it's going to be, you're really uncomfortable those last few weeks. I've never felt better. I've never been happier. I've never been nicer. Like I'm so nice to my husband. Like he probably is just always like, where, you know,
where is she? Where did she go?
I'm just like really happy. And so I'm going to suck it up while I can. And my baby room is really cute. And we got all the things, and I feel really blessed and grateful that I had, you know, I didn't get to have like the baby shower dream and all that stuff, but the thing that I did get to have, like a Zoom with a surprise, ended up being a huge blessing. So that's a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah. Well, let's do a never have I ever before. I know we're gonna lose you to having a baby.
Oh, I know.
I'm so glad we got it in. I was like, please don't be pregnant. Please don't have a baby today. Please don't have a baby today. Because we won't speak to you for like 6 more months.
I know. Probably I'll go into a deep dark hole.
You'll be like, I'm looking after a baby. Don't contact me again. Okay.
So we are going to play Never Have I Ever. And for our YouTube viewers, go to your iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts so you can hear Katharine's Never Have I Ever, because you definitely don't want to miss it.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
I'm so happy I did it. It was
oh my God. And we got you before baby. I mean,
I know.
Like, timing is.
I know. I hope by the time this comes out, I'll have a new baby. I'll send you guys pictures.
Oh, please do.
That'd be so good.
And I'm sure you have lots of friends who tell you the truth. But if you ever need any help or, you know, just someone to say, you know what, I've been through it. I have a blog, Bottle and Heels too, that we just started again. And we talk a lot about like postpartum depression. I'm not saying that that's something, but or anxiety or anything that you ever feel like you're struggling with. It is always good to, you know.
Yeah,
we'll be an ear for you in any way.
I love that. Yes, thank you so much.
Always. Yeah. And Katharine, where should people find you? What's the best place? Like just on social media?
Probably, Instagram is like the only place that I'm pretty active at. Katharine, although it's not Katharine McPhee, it's Katharine Foster, because you know I took so much pride in marrying the love of my life. So to the point where I changed it on Instagram. Yeah. So
change it on Instagram. It really matters.
Official. Yeah. That's like big.
And you know, what's actually kind of sad is that I did this, I did one season of a new show on Netflix, which is coming out in March. And I didn't say that to plug it.
What's it called? Please plug it. What's it called?
Oh, it's called Country Comfort. It's a half-hour sitcom. It's really fun. It's a little family show. It was a blast to shoot it. But my point in telling you that is that I wanted to go by Katharine McPhee Foster, and they were like, can we just stick with Katharine McPhee? Because I feel like people will get confused. And I was like, okay. But my Instagram, Katharine Foster.
Yeah. Just, it's the name thing. I haven't even, my husband and I were supposed to hyphenate, but we just never got around to it because
it's a pain in the butt.
I know, it's like so much stuff. So our kids are all hyphenated.
Yeah.
Poor kids are like,
I don't even know what my own kid's name is yet. So we're still trying to figure it out.
I feel like you have to see them sometimes to know.
Yeah, we had a name and changed her name.
That's what we keep saying.
In the hospital, all these videos of me like after C-section going, welcome Morrison to the world. Welcome Morrison. I didn't have a kid named Morrison. Her name's Lennon. And then I've like saved all these other pictures of another name of what I was going to call her.
Her name is Lennon. That's so sweet.
Her name's Lennon. Lennon Blue. Lennon Blue.
Well, that's a great name.
I feel like they weren't going to release Tammin from the hospital until she made the name, like put it on the birth certificate.
I know they kept saying, "Are you sure that's the name?" And we were like, "I don't know."
Day 4, and she was like, I'm like, "What are you calling this baby? Baby?" Like, because
they all came to the hospital because this is pre-COVID, and I had 4 people come to the hospital, my BFFs in LA, and they were all like, let's pick a name.
No, it's people are like, is there? That's the number one question you get. It's like, well, have you picked out a name yet? I'm like, we have, but we're kind of just waiting to hold him and figure out, what suits him the best.
That's right.
So, this was a pleasure. Thank
you so much. Thank you. And you guys can find us on Women on Top Official on Instagram
and Women on Top Podcast on Facebook.
And I am Tammin Sursock.
And I am Roxy Manning.
And we are Women on Top.